It's the last Tuesday of the month. Let's do a book wrap up. Hi everyone, I'm Tabitha. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking book reviews. I've already posted the reviews for the first 5 books that I read in October, so today we're just going to pick up on book number 6 and finish out the rest of the month. There's a lot of reviews to get to, so I'm going to make this quick. Don't forget that if you're an author or a publisher who had a part in bringing a book into the world, you can follow the link down below to send me that book to try to get it added to the TBR to get reviewed right here on this channel. In addition, you can find helpful timestamps for each of the books I'm about to review, so you can skip ahead to a review if you're looking for something specific. Ready? Go! All right, the 6th book that I read for the month of October is Werewolf Nights by Hamill. This is independently published in 2014 by Dog Ear Publishing. It is an adult age category fantasy novel, although it does have a lot of romance elements to it, and it is 216 pages. Your synopsis. Catherine Mercy lives in a town known for their werewolf lore, but she never took it seriously until strange things start happening around her. So what I didn't like about this one, well, first, the dialogue is a little clipped and sometimes felt unnatural. I didn't get a real feel for how anyone would actually speak, and I found myself wishing for actions like brushing a shoulder or moving some hair or anything just to break up big chunks of dialogue, or to maybe give me information about how that dialogue might have been delivered. The second thing I really wasn't crazy about this one is that the storyline can be just a little confusing. There are parts that sort of rushed, which I think is part of the problem, but there are also parts that I almost felt like were out of order. That could very well be, I don't know, maybe it was me, maybe I read it too fast. I did go back and read one section, but to me there was some parts that seemed just a little confusing. The last thing that I didn't particularly like about this one is the ending. It felt just a little bit too cliche for me and a little too happily ever after compared to the story that I was expecting. So let's talk about what I did like about this one, because there was a lot to like about this. The first one is our main character, Catherine, is a really good character. She has strong tendencies, and so she doesn't fall into that damsel in distress role, and I really liked that about Catherine. Second thing I liked about this one is the epilogue. The final chapter felt like it wasn't my favorite, which is what I alluded to when I said I didn't like the ending, but the epilogue seemed like a way better way to end the story. It was a good cap on the story, it was really interesting, and I liked where that was going. The last thing I liked is that this book gives you a slight twist on werewolf lore and legend. I found it really interesting. I thought this did a good job at blending traditional werewolf lore with some new twists and stuff that I was interested in, and I found this pretty cool overall. So who do I think should read this one? If you are a romance fan, usually, but you're interested in trying something with more of a paranormal twist, or you want to try something with werewolves, I think you're going to find yourself loving this book and what Mari did with this book. Overall, my rating, I had to go 2.5 stars, but for Goodreads, I rounded up to 3. The idea here had a lot of promise, but I found myself rereading to figure out the storyline and the timing on certain things, and that kind of messed up the pacing of the story just a little bit for me. But 3 stars overall for Werewolf Nights by Hamill. All right, the next book for the month of October is Let's Just Say It Wasn't Pretty by Diane Keaton. This is a 2014 release from Random House. It's an adult nonfiction. It happens to be a memoir. It is 192 pages. So in this book, your synopsis would be that an Academy Award winner Diane Keaton takes a look at unconventional standards of beauty in this memoir. This is the first Diane Keaton memoir I have read, but I hear that it's not the first one she has published. So let's talk about what I didn't like for this one.
And buckle up. It's going to be a lot.
First thing I didn't like for this one is the name dropping. I think I've mentioned before that name dropping can instantly turn me off. I'm not a big celebrity person, and so the name dropping doesn't really work for me. I expect some when I read a memoir like this because, of course, Diane Keaton is Diane Keaton, and so her crowd is going to involve lots of famous names. But this was literally lists upon lists upon lists of just name-dropping celebrities with little or no reason to have them all on the same list. And that seemed really repetitive and boring. The second thing I didn't like about this one is, in the nicest way possible, I can say she was rambling. This is a book with a bunch of non-cohesive stories that jump. Sometimes on one page, she will jump from story to story to story to story. It makes for a very confusing book. More than once, I found myself stopping to go back and reread just to figure out what we were talking about. The last thing I can say I didn't like about this one, and this is a big one, is that this whole book makes Diane Keaton seem very out of touch. And I think that's the opposite of what you look for when you pick up a memoir by a celebrity. When you pick up a memoir by a celebrity, you want a way to make them feel like they understand you, like you're closer to them and more like them than you ever would have imagined. You want to see the realism behind their life. And for me, this was the exact opposite of that. The descriptions of large, probably expensive pictures hanging on her wall, descriptions of vacation and shopping trips, it all left me feeling really disconnected. Like it's been a long time since she had to work for something or struggle. I got the sense that maybe young Diane would have related to me, but Diane today lives in a totally different world from me and wouldn't understand me at all. There were a few things that I did like about this one. So what I did like, one of them is that Diane does make an effort to talk about things we would relate to, like bra shopping or bad hair days. And those little scenes do work. And I wish more of the book had been like that. The other thing I like is that when she does talk about her kids, her pride comes through. You can tell how proud she is of her kids. And I did relate to that as well. Who do I think should read this one? I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable recommending this one to anybody. I love Diane Keaton's movies. I've heard good things about her other memoirs, but I didn't enjoy this one at all. I really didn't. So if you've actually read this one and you have an opinion, or if you have a better idea for who would enjoy this one, drop in the comments and let me know. Because for this one, my rating, I'm going 1 star on this one. The rambling style left me frustrated and confused to the point where I honestly don't even know what the heck I was reading. So 1 star for Let's Just Say It Wasn't Pretty by Diane Keaton. All right, my next book for October is actually an advanced reader copy. So this one is coming to you in November of 2019. And the book is called Craw by Sara. Like I said, this one's coming in 2019 from Thomas Nelson. It is a young adult fantasy book and it is 384 pages. And I did receive an ARC of this one from NetGalley and Thomas Nelson. So thank you to NetGalley and the publisher for this copy. Your synopsis: Coral has always been different, standing out from her mermaid sisters. Worse yet, she fears she has been afflicted with a dreaded disease, emotion. So first, I do want to give a warning really quick. This warning appears at the beginning of the book and also on Goodreads, so it's just worth mentioning. If you are triggered by stories of loss or suicide or mental health discussions or issues that relate to those in books, you should probably skip this one. So what I didn't like about this one, well, first, this book is billed or publicized as a dark retelling of The Little Mermaid. I don't want to spoil anything, but I didn't see it that way. The second thing I didn't like about this one is that the storyline was a little bit hard to follow. Even after finishing it, I feel like I should be able to go back to the storyline and put it all back into place in my mind, and I'm really struggling to do that, and I'm still a little confused about the order in which some of the things happened. There are details that honestly just seem out of place still in my mind, and that's confusing. The third thing I didn't like about this one is the ending. Without spoiling anything, I can just say that I didn't love it. Anything more that I said to you about this ending would be like a huge, huge spoiler. So feel free to email me if you've already read it, or after you read it next month, then we could totally vent about that a little bit more. So what did I like about this one? Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of the cover. I think this cover is really gorgeous. Second thing I like is that the portrayal of mental illness in this book resulted in some moments that were beautiful in their acceptance and their understanding. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that this book does take a hard look at mental illness, and it does a decent job of it. The third thing I liked about this book is a character named Brooke. She's raw, she's real, she's the most well-written character in this book, and I just wanted more chapters from her point of view. I connected with Brooke in a really deep way, and I really, really liked her. So who do I think should read this one? If you are looking for a book that explores mental health in an interesting way, I would suggest this one. I wouldn't say that this is going to be a 5-star book for you if you were interested in that dark retelling of The Little Mermaid. But I would say if you're somebody who's interested in depression or the consequences of depression or what that might feel like, this is a well-written book for that. My rating overall, I went 3 stars on this one. I think this book was marketed wrong. Honestly, I think this book needs to be marketed more as a dark book about mental health and something that looks at mental health. And then I think you'd know what you were getting into a little bit better, and it might have rated higher. Going into it, I was expecting more of a fantasy Little Mermaid type vibe than I got. So I think this was a very good book for what it was, but I think it was marketed wrong. So 3 stars for me for Coral by Sara. Okay, the next book for the month of October was this one, Letter to My Daughter by George Bishop. This is a 2010 publication by Ballantine Books. It is an adult age category fiction. I call it like family fiction. And it is a kind of a short one at 160 pages. Your synopsis: Laura is pouring her heart out in a letter to her teenage daughter, dictating the story of her own adolescence and everything she's ever meant to tell Elizabeth, but never has. Let's start with what I didn't like about this one. First of all, this book takes place mostly in Louisiana in the 1970s. So the racist language is really hard to read, even if the lovers of this book are going to argue with me that it's accurate for the time and the setting, which it is, and I'm not saying it's not. That doesn't make it easier to read. It is really hard to get through some of that openly racist language. The second thing I wasn't crazy about in this one is it does ramble a little bit. As much as I love hearing stories about like my mother's childhood, if I was Elizabeth in this book, this letter is too much. I had to ignore the fact that this was supposed to be a mother writing a letter to her daughter and just appreciate that I was getting the story about the mother's childhood. Otherwise, I was like, why are you telling your daughter this story? The third thing I can say about this book that I didn't like is, honestly, it's forgettable. I have a feeling that if you ask me about this in a month or 2 months, I'm not even going to remember reading it, and you're going to have to remind me about what it was about. And even then, I think my opinion is going to be real washed down and faded. It just didn't stand out to me, and that's my biggest problem, I think, with this one. So what did I like about this one? Laura's character, when she's in her teens, is really well written. What she's feeling, what she experiences, how she rebels, these are all things that I can relate to. And so for that, I think her character was well written. The other thing I liked about this one is the language. The descriptions of places and people are well written. So George Bishop does a good job describing things so that you can picture them. So who do I think should read this one? If you're the kind of reader who really, really loves descriptive language and you like your stories to be character driven, I think you're going to like this one. I also think if you're a reader who happens to be looking for a story about what it was like growing up in a time of the Vietnam War, I think you'll like this one. That doesn't mean this is a story about the Vietnam War. It's more about the people who were home at the time when the Vietnam War was happening. And that, if that's the kind of story you like, I think you'll love this one. Overall, my rating, I went 2.5 stars. I did round up to 3 on Goodreads. It's a quick read with beautiful language, but ultimately the storyline doesn't stand out and it's a little forgettable. So 3 stars for Letter to My Daughter by George Bishop. The next book I read for the month of October, and if you're keeping track, it's the 5th one on this video, which means it's the 10th one for the month of October, is one that has been on my TBR for a ridiculously long time, and that one is Zero by Tom Leveen. This one was published in 2012 by Random House Books for Young Readers. It's a young adult age category, and I would call it a contemporary, although it does have romance elements, and it is 304 pages. This one is new to the audiobook game. So Zero has been out since, like I said, 2012, but it just recently got an audiobook. So this audiobook copy came to me compliments of Tom Leveen and ACX, so thank you to them for my free copy. Your synopsis: aspiring artist Amanda Walsh, aka Zero, has had her entire summer turned upside down when her art scholarship is denied and she has a major falling out with her best friend. What was supposed to be the best summer ever has now become Zero's worst nightmare. So what didn't I like? Okay, full disclosure here, none of this is going to be stuff I actually didn't like. If I'm being totally honest with you, this book took me back. This book took me back to all the emotions about being a teenager and that feeling of thinking that you're falling in love for the first time. It took you back to that time of your life where you're completely unsure of who you are and your worth to the world and all of those feelings that you had going on inside you when you were a teenager. That being said, I know that there are some things in this book that other people might not like. So this time when I talk about what I didn't like, it's more stuff that I think if you're real sensitive to, you might not like. The first one of those things you might not like if you're sensitive to is that this book does contain sex. If you're coming into a YA book expecting it to be a young adult, like early teens, I'm going to say probably nope. This is a 17, almost 18-year-old girl in this book, and sex is something that does come into it. So you got to be ready for that. You got to know what you're getting into. The second thing I can see bothering you if you're real picky about this kind of thing is that Zero does come across as a kind of a self-absorbed teenager with blinders on. If that's going to bother you, just know about that ahead of time. I think it's pretty accurate for the way teenagers are. If we were to get a look back inside of our own brains, we were all probably a little selfish and had blinders onto the world, and Zero portrays that really accurately. She isn't always focused on what other people are feeling or thinking. She seems very focused on herself. Again, accurate, but if that's going to bother you, then you probably need to know that about this book. The last thing that I could say you might want to be warned about before reading this one is that Zero does have some cliche parents. This is pretty common in young adult, but again, it is worth mentioning that the cliche parent relationships did kind of make a rumble around this one. And so you just want to keep that in mind before you dive in. So let's get to what I did love about this book, because I loved this book. The first thing I can say I loved about this one, and I loved it within the first 10 pages, is Zero herself. She is angsty and sarcastic. She is smart and focused. She's talented. She's just amazing. She's not completely confident in herself, but who the heck is? But she's driven. I love that, and I loved her arc, and I love Zero. Second thing I loved about this book, loved, is the ending. You know me. You know I love a story that's going to give me enough answers to be comfortable, but not all of the answers. It's going to let me keep thinking and keep guessing after I close it. And this ending was absolutely perfect. It's just enough information to leave you satisfied and yet still thinking. In fact, I'll be thinking about Zero for a while. The third thing I loved about this one, and I kind of hinted at it already, is that this book takes a little stab at first love. And I think this book does an excellent job of capturing what that actually feels like. The positives and the negatives, the highs and the lows. It's like a roller coaster, and you're on that roller coaster with Zero. And it's wonderful to get to read that and relive that and feel that. So well written and very, very accurate. So who do I think should read this one? If you're a person who loves art or music, you'll love this one. If you're a person who is or once was or like to read about angsty teens, you'll love this one. And third, if you would classify yourself as a person who doesn't fit in, you're gonna love this one. Me, my overall rating, 5 stars. Oh, I love this book. I love this book. So 5 stars for Zero by Tom Leveen. It is definitely a new favorite, and the audiobook is a gem. So go out and find the new audiobook and get it downloaded. It's worth your time. All right, the next book for the month of October is this one, The Rift by Rachael Craw. This was originally published by Walker Books in Australia in 2018. This United States edition hardcover was published by Candlewick Press in 2019. It just came out this month in October. It is a young adult fantasy book, and this hardcover version is 352 pages. And actually, I want to say a quick shout out and thank you to YA Books Central and of course Candlewick Press for providing me this copy. I won a giveaway. So this is from YA Book Central. This is their giveaway from Candlewick Press. Gorgeous hardcover. So your synopsis. For generations, the Rangers have protected against the horrors released by the Rift. When Meg returns to her childhood home, she'll be just in time to witness a new threat even the Rangers weren't ready for. So what didn't I like about this one? The first thing I can say I didn't like is the pacing. This book seems to alternate between short, fast scenes packed with a ton of action and then slow parts that are really long and seem to drag out. So the pacing was strange and a little unusual. The second thing I didn't like about this one is it's confusing. I'm not sure that at the end of this book, I could accurately summarize for you all of the events in the book or what actually happened in the book. In fact, to be honest with you, I'm still a little confused. And that's a strange feeling for me. The third thing I didn't particularly like about this one is the depth of character. I was left wanting to know more about every character in this book. To be honest, this almost read like a sequel where we'd already had a book to develop character and get into them, but this isn't a sequel. So that was kind of strange to me. It left out huge chunks of their backstories and it made me feel a little, I think it contributed to the little feeling of confusion. So what did I like about this one? So there are animals in this one that are really kind of fascinating and sort of seemed cool. I'm not sure if I'm completely understanding their role and how they play into it, but they seemed like they were really cool. There seems to be a relationship even between one of the characters and an animal he can almost connect with. I don't know. I wanted that explored more because I thought that seemed like a really cool thing. The second thing I can say I liked about this one is that the romance in this one worked. That they have a challenge thrown in for them that sort of added to the drama of their romance, and it worked for this case. I liked it. It worked. Third thing I liked about this one is that this cover is gorgeous. It really, really is. This cover is absolutely gorgeous. Who do I think should read this one? Well, if you're the kind of reader who absolutely loves animals and you want more animals in your fantasy books, give this one a shot. If you're a fantasy reader who maybe doesn't like to have all the answers in your books, you might enjoy this one. And the last, if you're a really big fan of world building, I think you're gonna like this one because it does create a world with this rift that you've never heard of and you've never been a part of. So I think you're gonna like that. Overall, my rating, I had to go 2 stars for this one right now. I plan to maybe reread this one someday in the future because like I said, right now I'm still a little confused about the events. And if that happens and it changes my rating, I will be sure to let you know. But for right now, I have to go 2 stars because honestly, I'm still a little confused about what happened in this one. So 2 stars for The Rift by Rachael Craw. The next book I finished for the month of October is The Mystery of the Third Lucretia by Susan Runholt. This is a middle grades mystery at 278 pages, and it is a 2008 publication by Viking Juvenile. Your synopsis: Carrie and Lucas spot a man copying a famous painting in 2 different museums almost a year apart. They're sure it's the same guy, and they suspect he's up to no good. What didn't I like about this one? Well, the first thing I can say I didn't like about this one is it makes too many assumptions. The main characters are kids, and they make some crazy assumptions about this villain, which I like. I like that they make crazy assumptions because they're kids and they would do that. What I didn't like is that a lot of their crazy assumptions turn out to be correct. And to me, that felt a little unusual. The second thing I didn't like about this one is I can't say it's exactly relatable. This is 2 young girls who are world travelers with expensive budgets and loads of life experience. It just seemed really unrelatable and strange for girls their age, even for me. They're in places and spending money that I definitely don't have to spend, or places that I definitely can't afford to go. The third thing I didn't like about this one is there are some long explanations. I'm a fan of an author giving me information, particularly in a middle grade or young adult book. I like when the author is going to give us enough information to teach us something that they're talking about. What I'm not a fan of is long explanations that are completely sidelining the story and the action. If you have to put your action on hold to give us a teachable moment for 10 pages, you've lost me. And I didn't particularly enjoy that. I'd rather be in the middle of the action and the main plot. So what did I like about this one? Well, first, the idea for the story is cute. A couple of teenage girls solving an art crime is exciting and it's fun, and that was a cute idea for a story. The second thing I liked is I can say the ending actually worked for me. It felt like it wrapped up everything nicely, and I like that, especially in a middle grades book. The third thing that I liked is that I can say that in some books in the past, mystery stories, science fiction, whatever, you've seen the idea of a character who has photographic memory used in a weird way that it almost seems fake. So I thought this one was used in an interesting way. I don't know if it's realistic necessarily because I don't have a photographic memory, but to me it felt like a more realistic use of it than what I've seen in other books. So who do I think should read this one? Well, I definitely think this one would appeal to tweens more than teens. So I would say tween readers, like 5th to 6th grade, 7th grade maybe, they're going to find that this is an interesting mystery and that they get some strength and independence out of their main characters that I think they're going to really appreciate. For me, my rating for this one, I went 3 stars. It was decent, but ultimately this one's forgettable, and I can think of better mystery stories for this age group. So 3 stars for The Mystery of the Third Lucretia by Susan Runholt. The next book for the month of October is The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. This is a 2018 publication by Delacour Press. It's a young adult mystery thriller, and it is 384 pages long. Your synopsis: 5 years after the death of 5 cheerleaders, Monica will dig into the mystery because whatever happened 5 years ago may not be over. So what didn't I like about this one? The first thing I can say is the timelines felt strange. Aside from the fact that I didn't fully understand why this book needed to take place 5 years after the death of the cheerleaders, I think there were actually timeline inconsistencies. The major dates all happened in October, but I'm pretty sure I spotted a few errors. Minor things like saying something was October 27th and then later making it implied that it was October 21st. When you're dealing with a mystery, timelines and dates can be really important. So it was strange that I kept picking up on inconsistencies. The second thing I didn't like about this one is there definitely are viewpoints in this one that you don't need. So this story is told from multiple viewpoints, and normally I love books that do that. But for this one, it turned out I didn't need Jennifer's point of view at all. And that's not what I expected. I expected Jennifer's to be incredibly important. And it turned out to me, I don't think it actually added anything to the story that we needed. The third thing I didn't like about this one, and this is going to make it seem like I'm contradicting myself, but I'll explain it. I didn't like this unresolved ending. Normally, I love when an ending doesn't answer all the questions and leaves me hanging. And this one, I wouldn't even say it did that. So this one actually tied up the mystery really well, did a good job of giving you the answers to that. But the solution to the mystery would have unlocked a lot of bigger problems. So what I would have liked to see is I would have liked to see our main character or somebody in the book, because remember it's multiple viewpoints, I would have liked to see somebody in the book acknowledge the big problems this was about to cause. At least, they don't have to solve it, but at least so I'm aware that you know that they were problems they were caused, and that I don't wonder if it was just a plot hole in the ending choice. That's what I would have liked to see, because this almost felt like you solved it and forgot that there were things that this would have caused huge problems with. I can't mention what they were because it would be a giant spoiler, but this ending opened up giant what could possibly be plot holes, and they weren't acknowledged by any of the characters. And so I thought that was a little frustrating. So the mystery itself was wrapped up nicely, but I didn't like that the mystery would have caused, the solution would have caused bigger problems, and those were never even mentioned. So what did I like about this one? Well, first I can say it had a solid mystery component to it. You're facing a case that isn't solved, and it's slowly, you're getting clues, and you're slowly unraveling it and following it along with the main character, which of course is my favorite way to read a mystery. So that mystery worked. The second thing I liked about this one is I appreciate that the author thought that no topic was taboo. So Kara Thomas doesn't shy away from any sensitive topics in this book. She's going to talk about abortion, drugs, underage drinking, and more. And more. So I like that she didn't feel like anything was taboo. She didn't hold anything back, and she just threw it all into this book. The third thing I liked is Ginny. As a character, I thought she was a decent person. She's well written. She obviously has her secrets. I mean, basically, she's my favorite type of character. So who do I think should read this one? Anyone who absolutely loves young adult books and wants a mystery will love this one. I also think if you're a reader who likes young adult in general and you want to try mystery, I think you'd enjoy this one. And lastly, if you're the type of reader who thinks young adult has too much romance and you want to try young adult where romance isn't the main plot or the main subplot, I'm going to recommend this one because it definitely took a back seat to the mystery in this book. Overall, my rating, I said 3 stars. This one is a solid mystery, but I would have appreciated a bit more mention of what kind of commotion our ending would have caused. So 3 stars for The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. Okay, and the last book I read for the month of October, which is the 14th book if you're keeping track with me, although it's only the 9th one on this video, is I Hope You Find Me by Trish Marie Dawson. This is a 2012 publication. She did independently publish it, so this one's with Amazon or Kindle. It is an adult age category science fiction novel, 243 pages. And your synopsis: a global viral outbreak has left Riley alone in the city. She sets out on a journey to find others who may have survived, leaving notes in her wake in case anyone comes looking for her. So what didn't I like? I was hoping to dig into this post-apocalyptic world and be able to deal only with our main characters and not have to worry about paranormal subplots, and I didn't get that. But I can say that it didn't take over the book. But I was disappointed in the paranormal twist when it showed up. Second thing I didn't like about this one is that literally everybody loves the main character. It seemed a little unrealistic, and I'm kind of bummed that it went there. It was like any male who ran into this main character just like instantly fell in love with her, and it just kind of made me groan a little bit. Surely there's somebody who thinks she's fake or doesn't like her or is annoyed by her or something. Third thing I didn't like about this one is the settings seemed a little unrealistic. In a world where everyone's supposed to be dead, it seems unreasonable how many times our main character is able to stumble into electricity, water, food, things like that. That seemed a little unrealistic. So what did I like about this one? I will always say about post-apocalyptic novels that we are our own worst enemies, right? We are always our greatest problem is always going to be how we treat each other and how we can't seem to trust each other. And that's a constant theme in post-apocalyptic books, and I'm totally here for it. And I like the way this book explored that idea. Second thing I liked about this one, and I love this actually, is that mistakes that the main character makes are actually what drives your plot. And I thought that was a really cool tool for driving our plot. That's cool. I like flawed characters, so making her flaws and her mistakes drive your plot was neat, and I really liked that. Basically, Riley's allowed to make mistakes in this book. She makes so many of them that twists and turns your plot. I loved it. I am here for that flawed character. The third thing I liked about this one is I can tell that there will be a second one, even though I haven't read it. I think it's already out. And this book set that second one up really well. So you get enough answers that you're happy. This introduced your characters. You're invested in some of them enough that you feel like you want to read more about them. There are enough lingering questions that I'll go looking for the next one, even though this did have that satisfying cap or ending to this particular story. So who do I think should read this one? Well, if you're a reader who loves post-apocalyptic novels, but you want something that isn't necessarily page after page after page of zombies, I think you're gonna like this one because the people who survived are the focus. And so that's something you're gonna enjoy. My rating overall, I'd say 3.5 stars, and I rounded up to 4 for Goodreads. Quality novel, and I think it gave me what I was looking for, and I just really, truly loved the idea of letting Riley's mistakes drive this story. That was awesome. So 4 stars for I Hope You Find Me by Trish Marie Dawson. Okay, that's it for me and the total of 14 books that I read this month. So remember, you can check out the previous 5. It'll be linked down in the comments. If you've read one of these books and you have an opinion about it, I think you should drop your opinion into the comments because I love to talk books, and conversations are better when they go 2 ways. I also think if you are an author or a publisher who brought something into the world you think I would enjoy, you should follow the link to the Google form down below and let me know about it so I can get it reviewed on this channel. Subscribe to this channel so that you know when I'm back. Hit the thumbs up if you liked this video. Keep plotting the path to your dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye!